How long's the music track?
Depends on how long we cut it. And then trail in.
If that's not the intro, I'm going to be disappointed.
As I was saying it, I was like, "Oh no, Brian's cutting this. He's gonna use this as." Oh dear. Okay, give us a proper intro.
Well, how's everybody doing? My name is Brian Monday.
Very nice. That's some
And
NPR level.
You are.
Stuff, right? I am Cameron Harris.
And this is the Purple Donut Podcast.
That it is. Now I know what you're thinking. What is the Purple Donut Podcast? I thought I was subscribed to and listening to Follow Focus, the premier podcast for video and media production discussion between two random dudes. Well, you were listening to that. No longer.
It's dead.
It is dead and has been reborn as the Purple Donut Podcast because we started Follow Focus before we started Purple Donut together.
Yeah, Purple Donut was not even a figment of our imagination when Follow Focus started.
We literally had the conversation of, hey, we should work together after we recorded the first episode of Follow Focus. So it's been a crazy, well, not even year since we started that. But
I'd have to look back and see the official date that we met because it was around this time. It was like early to mid-January.
I think it was very early January. It was like the first Chamber of Commerce event of the year.
Yeah, you keep looking that up. I'll entertain the people.
Please do.
So, as Cameron said, the Follow Focus podcast is no more for good reasons because, our last episode was in July, I think, or something like that. It was a long time ago.
Like that. Yeah, it was
a long time ago. And we didn't forget about it. We talked about it like every time we met together, saying, when are we going to do the next episode? We're like, how about Tuesday? And then Tuesday would come and we'd be down in DC shooting something. So
yeah, we've just been too darn busy, which
is great. We are great.
Happy to have that problem, but we really want to make sure that we can keep this up because we have a blast doing this. This is us talking to each other. Like, we would be doing this anyway. We might as well record it and get some content out of it, and then hopefully provide some entertainment and education to you guys. That being said, Follow Focus being its own brand didn't really make sense now that we have a brand together. So that's why the name changed to Purple Donut Podcast. And then we're going to be kind of restructuring it a little bit. We're going to be we are going to give you guys 2 episodes a month Boom. 2 episodes a month starting at the moment you are listening to this, which will be the first Monday of January. So first Monday every month is going to be the main Purple Donut Podcast where we're going to be talking about what's going on with us in the business, what we're working on, what our plans are. You really kind of get, an inside look at what's going on in our heads. And
which is kind of scary sometimes.
Yours especially. Ooh, I've been in there. It's a scary place.
I mean, the people know. If they've listened to the old school stuff, the classic stuff, they know.
Oh, the intro alone of this episode, the chaos of this intro should show you that not much has changed. Besides the name. That said, you will also then expect on the 3rd Monday of every month, you will be expecting a special episode of the podcast that we're calling Office Hours. This is going to be more educational, more tutorial almost. We're going to take a specific topic or a thing that we have figured out over the course of us running our creative agency, and we're going to break it down for you guys. We really want to pay it forward because we've learned a lot from YouTube channels and podcasts and different creators who have been kind enough to share their knowledge with the world. We want to do the same, and whatever we can add to the hive mind of the internet, the better. That's our intention, at least. So look out for that, the Purple Donut Podcast and then the Purple Donut Office Hours, 2 episodes every month. Looking forward to it. This month is going to be really exciting because we're going to be talking about, on the next Office Hours podcast, we're going to be talking about our latest ad that we produced for ourselves and how we strategized that, how we shot it, how we produced it, and how we figured out where that was going to run. That can be a really big thing, whether you are an agency making ads for other people, or if you're like us, you're producing your own ad and you want to get it out there. It's a very it's a fun process, but it requires a lot of planning if you don't want to just be flushing your advertising money down the drain. So.
Absolutely. And to that note of chaos, we weren't supposed to talk about that till the end, so we're just gonna riff that. It's fine. You know,
Hey,
the office. You
it
know, I
felt
just thought
natural.
about too. I just thought about it could just be the donut hours, kind of like coffee talk, or like what's the office speak when you're at the water fountain? What's that called? Or the
Oh,
water?
water cooler talk?
Yeah, like the donut talk. That could be pretty cool. Anyways,
Donut talk?
office
Okay.
hours. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
We'll
Yeah.
figure it by the
There will be a
third
name
Monday.
and a second episode of things from us on the third
Yes.
Monday of every month.
Look forward to it. Be on the edge of your seat for what the name is going to be.
Yeah. But that's
Because who
definitely
the
the
heck knows?
topic. I think we have a great topic there.
Yeah. No, we're
But
definitely going to be talking about our end.
we'll get more into the nitty gritty of that in our office hours, donut talk podcast episode later. But another thing we thought about with the relaunch of the podcast was a better structure for things, right? So just like you said, this is like encapsulating everything you've said, and me just saying it again just in case I didn't hear it. Purple Donut Podcast is more going to be kind of into our lives and overcasting business and like personal stuff. And then third Monday podcast is going to be more nitty gritty, like, you know, like work specific stuff, like cool
Yeah.
ideas and tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff that we can use for multiple platforms and social medias and all that good stuff. So
Yeah, there might be
yeah,
video components. You'll probably see stuff on both Apple Podcasts and Spotify and TikTok, Instagram, all of these places.
yeah, actually, thanks for reminding me. I'm writing that down. Yeah,
You're a big pen
you'll
and paper guy.
yeah, yeah. I've, you know, you saw I just moved them over there, but I've got like 5 or 6 notebooks that just over time, um, I've always enjoyed writing. I don't know what it is about actually putting pen to paper and like making words happen. Now, if you can like understand what's where and what's happening here, this is probably like 4 different conversations that happened in my head, but like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I understand it, so it's all that really matters. But these will sell one day, and they'll be worth a lot of money because there's some good stuff in there.
Unfortunately, it's all written in your own like personal code.
Yep,
Um,
my code,
so
my structure, my handwriting.
all of which to say, no one can read them but you.
Yeah, it's just me. Cool. So that's like the gist. We're back. We're here.
Yeah.
So let's start with a little recap of
Yeah.
last year. You know,
It
let's
is the
start
new
let's start on
year.
the
It's
personal side.
2025.
Yeah, let's start on the personal side, and like I can go first just to give you time to think about it if you want. But you want to go first? You didn't object.
Hold on. Your connection, I think, really, really broke up.
So first off, I moved and now I live in the woods and I have Starlink as my internet provider, and they do so wonderful. Other than uploading a podcast live, you know.
Yeah, I think with Starlink, they basically do really well until like there's like a half second where something gets in the way of the satellite or the wind blows the wrong direction, and then your internet just
Yeah,
cuts out. Only for like 5 seconds, but it just
it's
like
a good like once every 5 minutes. You know, it's very consistently that.
yeah, it's not bad.
I hit the
I'm curious
orbital
to
gap where
see.
there's not a satellite.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what this looks like in the final recording because in theory, all this is being recorded locally, so it's probably just a problem that I will see and not the lovely viewers and listeners. But we'll see.
Yeah, just you. Anyways, I moved
Yeah,
up into the woods. It's been a nice little transition for everything, right? That's kind of an update, not a recap. So we'll go back through 2024. Um, what a wonderful year to start off. I think it was very successful on all personal business, you know, all of the relationships, all of that went pretty well. There was not a lot of drama last year. Like
no,
after Purple Donut started, really. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
No, and this is the thing. Like, we're talking about 2024 as a whole, but really, when we're talking about Purple Donut, we're talking about 6 or 7 months was the
Yeah.
total
Like,
lifespan of Purple Donut existing. You and I working together on this. 6 or 7 months was about all it was. And I think the amount that we were able to get done, both in terms of like the projects that we got done last year, like you said, the relationships that we built last year. If
Yep.
any of our clients are listening to this right now, thank you guys, because we were able to build some incredible relationships with some incredible people. And at the end of this year, or at the end of last year, I should say,
Ha!
I really looked back at the last 6 months and was like, holy crap, we did all that in 6 months. Like, from, I don't want to say from scratch, because like you had been doing your stuff, I'd been doing my stuff, we had our existing contacts. So when Purple Donut started, we already had like a handful of clients and like some work that was already kind of like built in, that was grandfathered in underneath. But we still were able to really like throw gasoline on the fire and set things off.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting because we've both been entrepreneurs for multiple years now, or like, freelancers, whatever you want to call it. But last year was definitely the most productively structured year that I've had. Productively structured and like consistent also, because we went over all of our sales data and all of our project data and all of that stuff, and each month was like, it was a trending, consistent growth each month financially, and you could tell quality wise there was growth from the beginning to the end.
Oh yeah.
Which is kind of insane because, like, one of the first shoots was the wedding in downtown. That was like one of the first ones?
The CareNet interviews I think was the first thing that you and I
CareNet.
ever worked on, and then the wedding was
Okay,
shortly after that.
it was right after. So I think that wedding was in March, which was still prior to us coming together.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing what we did for, the folks at CareNet and doing their interview style stuff, to our last production of the year being our advertisement, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's some, like, that's insane. Like, it's insane to see the difference. Now, we also did invest in lights and invested in camera gear and invested in, our professional selves, like,
Mm-hmm.
doing the dang thing basically, and that has helped a lot. But seeing where we were there doing those interviews to the freaking movie screen ad that we put together, like, and we watched it yesterday, and it I think it looked better than I could even have fathomed, like, on the
Absolutely
big
agreed.
screen. Like, it had a place there,
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
And to make it clear, this is an ad, because I don't think we've like specifically said where this is going. This is airing in a local movie theater called Warehouse Cinemas, which is a wonderful chain. If you're in the DMV area, Warehouse Cinemas is where it's at.
Yep, they do it
They're
right. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a lovely, lovely place. And all of their pre-roll ads before you get to the trailers, it's all local businesses who are submitting like 15 or 30-second videos, or sometimes it's like just like a PowerPoint slide kind of a thing. It's just a static. But there's a decent number of videos, and we're able to be one of those. Started airing literally yesterday as we're recording this, so it's brand new, but yeah, we were able to see that, and it looks at home. Like, seeing it on a 60-foot screen, it looked at home up there. And like, the work that we did when we first started working together, as we were doing that work, I was very proud of it. Still am, absolutely.
100%. Yeah.
But like, I think part of it has been us finding our look and our creative style, and figuring out what exactly we needed to do to invest in to make that happen.
Yeah.
Because like, we both had similar rigs going into Purple Donut. Those rigs, very little of that original equipment is still being used at this point. Like, we've upgraded just about everything, from the camera bodies to the lenses to the audio equipment to the lighting.
Yep.
But like,
Stands.
oh gosh, we should do a whole like office hours
Oh,
on just stands.
we
And
we
like,
we will. Yeah, the
here's
stands
what
that
to look for.
well, first off, tangent on the stands, right? We started using the C stands more. And
Mm-hmm.
originally, when I told you I got these C stands, I told you that I bought them for like $130 off of eBay. And I was like,
For
and
a
it
set
was
of two.
a set of two, and we got them. And well, I got them, and I set it up in my front yard of my house, my previous house. And it's a 12-foot tall stand. Like, it extends to like 10, 12 feet or whatever. And we just started really using those a lot, and they're insane. Like they
Yep.
have been such a helping hand to in versatile pieces of equipment. And we finally invested in real light stands that are like in like industrial grade, like super tall. Like there's the small things we even upgraded. Like not it's not just your your storage or your memory or your cameras or your lenses. Like when we did that, I feel like that was even another bigger step into upgrading our production value.
Oh yeah. And I think we were able to identify those pain points because we had so many shoots this year.
Yeah. Oh
Because
yeah.
like every time we went out into the field or to a studio or into someone else's, a client's environment, I feel like we walked away with like, okay, here's what we could have done better, or here's a
Mm-hmm.
pain point that we had. Whether that was like that could be something really tiny, like, hey, we need a slightly longer, like we need a 9-inch SDI cable for this monitor instead of a 6-inch because we wanted to be able to turn the monitor a specific way. Even something as little as that. That's stuff that like we've really been able to hone and figure out what we needed to prioritize and invest in because we went on so many shoots. I don't know what the number is, but dozens upon dozens of shoots.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's over the course of about 6 or 7 months, and that's everything from we did a ton of weddings, which was that's been more your background. That was kind of a newer thing to me. I had done a couple, but I did more weddings this year
So they can.
than I had done in all of my years previously combined. Um, we've done setup stuff. We've done event coverage. We've done uh, scripted like commercial work,
Yeah.
and like everything has its own little space and its own needs. And I feel like we've really, when we did our ad, like you said, that was the last production we did this year, and it was over the course of multiple shoot days because we had some of it was set up over here, some of it was set up over there. We had like 4, 5 different locations, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and every one of them was in a very different environment with a very different goal. But every time we walked into that, we knew exactly what we were looking for, and we knew exactly how to like set it up to make it happen. You especially, because like you're the camera guy, I'm the post guy. Like we share back and forth, but you are very much you're the DP, and it's been so cool to like feel like we've got the stuff that you know all we got to do is you know point you towards a set and you can immediately figure out, oh, let's do this, let's do
This
that,
is
and let's
what we
do this.
need. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I remember I was like one of the last big things we got was a tube light, and we'll talk about this thing sometime a little more in depth because it's
I got to
very
add it to
cool.
the list because we didn't have the tube light when we wrote this list like three
Yeah,
months ago of topics to make podcasts about.
100% tube light should be on there. Full transparency, I was like a little skeptical when you were like, oh, we should get a tube light. I was like, we've got these other lights, like I don't really see what a tube light's gonna do that is like going to be super
Everybody
different.
just
But
remember this is the same thing you said about the name Purple Donut Studios. So, yeah.
I need convincing sometimes. But like seeing how we've been able to use that thing, how you've been
Yeah.
able to use that thing, I'm like, okay, great. Like
Yeah.
that has opened up avenues for us lighting wise that we didn't have before. And that's what all new equipment should be. It should either be allowing you to do something you couldn't do before, or it should be making it way easier for you to do what you're already doing.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. So, recapping again, since we're on that topic,
Yeah.
we had a lot of shoots. We did. I feel like we did really well. We struggled when we got together and did our year review. We struggled. I won't say a lot because we came up with like two or three things, but we struggled with saying like this is what we need to improve on.
Mm-hmm.
Like our biggest thing was actually putting ourselves out there
Mm-hmm.
for marketing or on social media or
Yeah.
like
For winning work.
outside of to we had up to this point, like this is part of our 2025, like moving forward, like this is our goal, um is to have more of a social media presence, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's posting our work, our behind the scenes, our work, like the podcast stuff, clips, like just one off YouTube video type of stuff, like that type of content, so that our presence is there. And if we direct a client to our social medias and they want to like hire us for something, it's not a dead page, right? And that's just because we got so busy. We quite literally didn't have time to sit down and, put a lot of direction into our own social media presence,
Yeah, because we wanted to do it right and
Yeah.
not just be like randomly posting stuff every now and then. So like it's one of those things of like physician heal thyself. The first thing to go by the wayside when we got busy, like we're gonna prioritize our client work over ourselves every time. So the biggest thing I think was like we are going to make time and effort in the new year to we're not going to get any less busy. So we are
Yeah.
going to need to make sure we protect the time that we need to keep that stuff alive, make the time to do that, have a plan, have a strategy, have a schedule. And, same thing with the podcast and other stuff too, like updating the website, and we're going to be updating our reel. There's a lot of stuff that we need to do to make sure that we can not just stay as busy as we are, but keep going to the next level with stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I think I've told you about the lid, right? There's I read a book or heard a story a long time, like a couple of years ago, and every business owner, every business hits their ceiling, hits their lid. Like, what is going to be the next thing to get you to break through to the next level?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we've kind of conversed about. Like, this is what it is. Like, our next level is having that social media presence so that we have enough work to bring people on, we have enough work to get our own studio space, like, which already is relevant. It's not like a futuristic, like way down the road, like, yes, we would love to do this. Like, all of that stuff is possible right now
Yeah, wheels are
without
turning
us
on.
doing that.
Yeah,
Like,
wheels are turning on that as we speak. Like it's very early days, but like we're already starting to bring in some really great people and work with them as contractors. I'm really looking forward to doing more and more of that this year.
yep.
Um, it's been really great to find these people because like as someone who's been in the industry for a long time, it's it's always a challenge to find people who you like mesh well with from a personality standpoint, but B, people who you trust enough. Not that you think they're gonna
Yes.
be
Yep.
malicious or something like that, but trust that they have the skill set that you need and that you expect, that I can we can say, hey, we need you to go shoot something for a client, and we know that it's not going to suffer in terms of quality because we're not there. Like that's a huge thing for me at least. And I'm really
Exactly.
excited that we're starting to build up this great group of people that we're bringing in for video stuff, but also web design stuff and social media stuff and graphic design. Like there's a ton of stuff. We haven't really talked a ton about that on this show. Um,
That's very true.
because I mean, you and I are both video guys. That's really our big focus. Like something that happened last year was we started doing a lot of website work, and frankly, it was not a service we were really pushing. Like
No.
we weren't.
We would get inquiries. Our website's really good, and like, we've had it done up really well. So that is also a testament to why this is happening. But we've gotten a ton of just inquiries through our website that
Mm-hmm.
were like, "Hey, we need web design. Like, help us
Yep.
out." I think there was three or four that just came through the website, and they were like, "Hey, like, oh, that including Purple Cow, like that's not website, but just come through the website." And they're like, "Hey, we need this. Like, can you help us?" And
Yeah.
we've landed them.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. That's three or four. I think it might even be closer to five or six
yeah,
that came from the website and became like actual active clients.
yeah,
If
yep,
you include, this wasn't just like, oh, we got a hit and then like they ghosted us
they're
or never
gone.
actually
Yeah,
responded. There were plenty of those,
yeah,
but yeah, like five or six hits that just literally kind of fell in our lap because people happened to Google us.
yep,
I think that we've talked a little bit. I think our last episode of Follow Focus, we were talking about the name Purple Donut, and one of the things we mentioned was that it's such a unique name. Uh, it really, I think, has helped us with our SEO for people finding us in ways that I don't think I could have anticipated
yeah.
before we actually put it out there and like kept it going. With that being said, before we get too far off track, we were talking about things that
Us off track?
never
No.
things that we were looking at over the past year that we think we could improve on.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing ourselves and like going out and actively pursuing new clients, I think is the big thing. We're super active in networking events, and you know that's probably the biggest active thing that we did last year
Yeah.
was Chamber of Commerce events and things related to that networking and everything. And that's great, but I think we can be even more active in it. And the fact that we've got as much advertising out there as we do now, because we've got the Warehouse Cinemas ad plus two, actually three now, with the Conduit magazine from the Chamber of Commerce. Uh,
Yep.
Ads in three print publications locally. That's going to be really exciting to see. Those are already starting to pay off, but those are only a few months. Those campaigns are only a few months old. So, and there's so
Yeah.
much more we can do.
And it's really cool. So we were talking to a potential client yesterday and whenever recently, and they
I
had
think it was yesterday,
mentioned,
but it's
I
been a
think it was
blur.
yesterday, days are split into two anymore because it's like you have a morning and then an evening, and then it's like those are two separate days in our world because we
That is
can get a
very much
lot
how it's
done.
felt to me
Like,
too. Yeah, especially if I have to be like, oh, I've got to shoot at 6:30 in the morning. That
yeah,
really splits your day into two.
yeah, 6:30 in the morning. You get back at 11, and then you have networking or meetings or yeah, whatever in the evening. It's like okay, this is like 2 or 3 days of stiff. Anyways, um, we were talking to a client or potential client, and they were like, "Yeah, we saw you in this magazine. Like, we are a part of the magazine, but we saw you guys in it, and we were interested. Like, that's what interested us in your services."
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Oh my god, it actually works."
It is weird when that
Now,
happens.
you have been the receiver of those types of conversations through another magazine, the Kentlands one. Like,
Right.
you have heard that many of times. I hadn't heard that yet. So like
Mm,
to me, I'm like I know we're getting leads from the magazines and advertising and all that. But when I heard that, I was like, dang, that's actually pretty cool. Like I didn't these things are actually they're actually real.
yeah. And then
But
eventually we're gonna start hearing stuff like, "Hey, I saw your ad at Warehouse," and
yeah, I saw you on the big screen. Like, help me out. Like, yeah.
yeah,
So, yeah, that's it's been a really cool. That was a really cool moment. If I
mm,
was to, gauge if anything was worth it. They haven't paid us anything yet. They haven't signed anything yet, but I think that was cool to hear. You
yeah.
know.
And again, for a campaign that is months old,
Yeah.
uh,
Exactly.
yeah, there's so much more potential with all these campaigns, and we say this to our clients, but it's worth reiterating. It's a campaign. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
one and done. Like we're not going to be airing in Warehouse Cinemas for 1 month and then not do it again. We are. It's continuous, so it takes time to let it build up, and I think we're going to really start seeing the effects of that snowball this year, and then adding in our other stuff of the other things that you and I can be doing of like reaching out to potential clients and tracking them down
Yeah.
rather than just waiting for them to stumble upon us. I'm really excited to see what we can do with that. The other big thing that we talked about, so it's funny in terms of the things that we didn't that we I don't want to say we didn't do them well, but things that we could have improved on after last year. I don't think either of us for even a second thought, oh, we could be making better work. I don't think that's like
No,
could we
not
be making
even.
better work? We're always improving, but like I feel
Yeah.
so proud and happy of where we are in terms of the quality of the product that we're able to put out there. It's more about finding the opportunities for us to really put what we have in terms of our capabilities to the test.
Yeah.
Um,
I thought it was on a note of that, like the English with a Purpose shoot. Like
yeah,
you weren't even there. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like you didn't have to be there, which is like on my side too, like when you produce these magical post-production edits and like all that kind of stuff, like I'm like I didn't even have to put my hand in that. Like
mm.
other than saying like you know good job. You send it to me and I'm like, yeah, I'll review it. But like that's probably the coolest thing of this relationship, like the partnership in the business is like we aren't striving, not that we aren't striving to create better or do higher quality or do be better at that, but it's almost an unknown for us because it's only gotten better and better and better, and we don't really know what better than what we have right now is. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's an interesting, like, black hole.
Yeah. And I think that one thing that this was a conversation that we only had recently, but you and I discussing like more officially separating the work that we do into like you shoot, I edit. Like
Mm-hmm.
and it's still not a complete like there is a hard line. Like I still shoot, you still cut, but like really leaning into our individual focuses on that, I think has helped a lot because it frees up both of us to focus on the part that we really enjoy that comes really naturally to us. And so it's like you can, you know, pass off footage to me and are you part of the process 100%? And like some things like you and I had a whole conversation last night about a wedding edit.
Mm-hmm.
And you had some like really awesome for for me was a very out of the box way of looking at it and was super helpful. But at the same time, it's like you can for some of this stuff pass off the footage and you don't have to like be thinking about it. And then from my perspective, you know, you pass me off a drive, I look and I'm like, this is gold. Like, great. I just have awesome footage to work with now,
It's not
which
turd polishing. Come
it's
on,
not
man.
turd polishing. And like, there's a lot of turd polishing. There's a lot of that.
You've experienced that before?
I've experienced my fair share of being in the turd mines, polishing those suckers.
No more. Well,
No,
not from our stuff that we
not
shoot.
for the stuff
Yeah.
that we shoot.
Yeah.
Uh, but so my point that I was driving to was that like there was very little that I could point at and be like we should really work on this from the creative side. The stuff that immediately came to my mind when I thought of what could we improve on was all of the stuff surrounding it. So like the advertising was a part of it, and then like the organizational and admin stuff. Um,
Mm.
you know, talking about like how we handle project management and like keeping track of, you know, what's being produced, what's being shot, when, where, what's the schedule for the edit, who's working on what. And that's, I think, I have always, since I became freelance, I've always struggled with that. Not necessarily in staying organized, but in terms of having like a very established and consistent system for it.
Mm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's been simply because like I like having stuff being super organized and consistent and all that stuff, but when it was just me working on stuff, I didn't need that system. I was able
Yeah.
to hold all of the projects I was working on in my head, and the idea of like, okay, well now working in, you know, some kind of project management, getting things done, task manager thing, and taking what's in my brain and putting it into this thing, I don't need to do that because it's living just fine up here. So it was like, that's
Yeah.
extra time and effort to transition it into this system when it's just going to be me going back and pulling it out. I'll just keep it in my head. Who cares? I think that's still kind of the case with you and me right now because we communicate all the time. We're very much in sync, and we both of us really kind of, for the most part, know what the other's working on, when this other thing needs to happen. But as we get busier and busier, like there have been a couple times this year where I've been like, I've got too many projects active in my head at once. I'm worried something's going to fall out. That has not happened yet, but
Yeah.
that's an example of like, okay, this is something that, especially as we start bringing more people in, we need to be able to like, other people are not going to be able to share and do like a mind meld like you and I do. We need to be able to point them to a thing and be like, hey, this is what everything that's going on right now. These are your projects. You can see everything else and what everyone else is working on. You go figure out what you need to work on based on that.
Absolutely. And on that note, two things come to mind, which I'd love you to explain to the people that don't understand or have never used these platforms, right?
Okay.
One being Notion,
Mm.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
The other being what we can do with the Blackmagic cloud.
Oh my gosh.
And
So
that. So whichever
Blackmagic
tangent
Cloud.
you want to start on,
So Blackmagic
what it
Cloud should
is
absolutely
for the people
be.
that don't know, let
It
them
should be
have
an
it.
office hours podcast.
Okay, perfect.
Is
I'm
what it
writing it
should
down.
be because we should absolutely talk about that, and that's actually a great thing because there's not a ton of content out there explaining how it works, especially not up-to-date content, because
Mm.
Blackmagic is, as a company, they update their stuff all the time. The Blackmagic Cloud is no different. In the last month, they've added like different ways of viewing things on the web interface, and they've cut their storage prices in half. Like, I love this company.
Oh yeah, you did I remember you briefly saying that because we just recently upgraded our thing to have multiple
Multiple project libraries.
project, yeah, like all that kind of stuff. And then you said the storage is cut in half. Like, so explain to the people what we are doing with the project libraries in like an overcasting,
Yeah.
because
So,
that's an office hours now.
yeah.
So we'll get deep
10th,
then.
Definitely. 10,000 foot view is Blackmagic Cloud is effectively cloud storage that's provided by Blackmagic Design. Blackmagic Design makes all of our cameras, and they also make DaVinci Resolve, which in the past year has become our editor of choice. We've pretty much exclusively, almost exclusively moved to that from Premiere. Still have some projects that need Premiere, some things that need After Effects or Photoshop or whatever, so we're still paying big Adobe, their
Yay.
share. But the basic idea is that if you're in Resolve, Blackmagic Cloud is up there in the magic sky, and any project files are immediately and automatically synced live up to a project library, which is then synced down to anyone else who we have given access to. And so that includes me and you so that we can share the same projects. It also handles uploading and sharing of the original media files. Can do the original media files, but really mostly it's built for proxies. So the way we have it set up is basically we have, a 2 terabyte project that we've set over here. When we import the stuff into Resolve, it automatically creates tiny little proxy files that are uploaded to the cloud, and then if you, for example, Brian, open a project, within a matter of minutes, it's able to download the project file and all of the proxy media that you need just to be able to see it. It's low quality stuff, but you're able to see it and you're able to work in it. And like, as long as you can look past the artifacting and the low res stuff, it's like you're working on the same project that I am. We can even be in the same project at once. You have last night, I think were showing me like, hey, can you open this project file that I'm working on and just like tell me what you think. I'm like,
Oh yeah. Yep.
yeah, like you can actually be in the same project and only one person can be editing it, but multiple people can be viewing it and like making suggestions, or you can jump out of it and I can make a tweak and like send it back to you. So Blackmagic Cloud has been a game changer for us in terms of how we're organizing and storing stuff. And we'll talk more about like how the exact workflow of that works, because there are a couple of eccentricities with it that we continue to experiment with. It's still I think it is still technically a beta product for Blackmagic, but it's been working wonders for us. The other tool is Notion, which is some people probably already know Notion. If you don't, it is effectively like a database program. But imagine a database program that has been merged with Legos is basically the best way I can describe it, where you are able to like everything is just a module. So like you've got a database and then you've got all these other modules you can plug in and reference other things with it. In Notion, you basically build your own to-do list, project management system, bookkeeping system. You can build kind of anything you want in this thing. The only downside to it is that you have to build it.
Mm-hmm.
They have like templates you can use, and there are a lot of really good ones. They just launched an official like template store where creators can add their templates and you can download them or buy them or whatever. But I think the real benefit of Notion for people like us, especially if you are of a more creative dissuasion, is you get to build a system that works the way you think it should. I've used a lot of project management things over the years. In my time at Discovery, we used things like Asana, we used Trello, I've used Hive, I've used a bunch of different ones, Monday.com, Basecamp, all kinds of things. And they all had things that I liked about them and things I didn't like about them. And there was never one that I was like, yes, this is
This is
good.
it.
This
Yeah.
thinks the way I think, or this works the way I think. With Notion, you can build it to think or to work the way that you think it should work. I think that the potential for us, and I say potential because we haven't really done this yet, is we can build systems like project management systems, financial systems, scripting, and all kinds of crazy stuff, scheduling. We can build it out in ways that make sense for both you and me. Because you and I have
Yeah,
different ways that we visualize things and process things and think about things. So I think that because we can really customize this thing, we can make it work for us. Because the biggest thing is it needs to be easy for us to work in. Because if it's not easy for us to work in, we're just not going to do stuff in it.
exactly. Yeah, and I think to the point of what you said earlier, we're trying to, or we need to create systems for the growth that we're going to have with having other potential people being able to have their hands in things and on things. That's Notion is a tool that I feel like you have a pretty good grip on. I have a good grip on. It's like purpose,
Mm-hmm.
but using it, I have not optimally used it the way it should be used and the way that we have structure, because we have a pretty good system within there and structure within there, and what this is, what that is, what this is, and you've done a great job, basically taking that role and making that stuff happen. But you're 100% correct. I think the reason I don't personally like dig in and like try to do things in there is because that's just not the way my brain works.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm pen and paper, like,
Right.
which is half a fault of, like, yeah, evolve with the systems and things like that. And I'm not saying I'll never really, I'll never fully, not saying I will never fully go into using Notion and doing all that. I just have to get there.
Totally. And I would never call it like, this is getting into much more of a philosophical, like organizational conversation, but
Yeah, let's
I
do
would,
the philosophy here. Go ahead.
yeah, I would never call it like a fault if your brain doesn't mesh with a tool. That's not a fault of you. Like your brain
That's
works the way
valid.
your brain works, and it's like
It works
I would,
all right.
yeah. I mean, it does work. Like, look at what we've been able to accomplish with like the two pieces of gray matter we're floating around with.
Mm-hmm.
A tool should be adapting to you, not the other way around. Big believer in that, and that I think is why I like Notion, because Notion is one of the most adaptable tools out there.
Mm-hmm.
Because like when I first went freelance, I went through free trials for like 5 different project managers, and I just couldn't mesh with any of them. And I landed on Notion not because I opened up Notion and immediately was like, oh, yes, this is perfect, but it was because, oh, I can customize this until it is perfect for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like you're halfway towards like building your own tool, except you don't have to code anything unless you do Notion formulas. That's a whole other thing. Um,
Oh boy.
I was working in our finance tracking thing last night, and I was able to go to ChatGPT and be like, I need a formula in a Notion project that does this, because I was like trying to do it and I couldn't figure it out. I was like, I need a formula that does this. It's like an Excel formula, same idea, or like an After Effects expression. And ChatGPT popped out a 1 sentence thing. It even explained like this does this, this does this, this does this. I pasted it in and it worked immediately first time. I was like, thank you. This
You
is
are.
wonderful.
You are. I was, because we were doing. I was telling you I was chat GPTing things, and like I was getting super detailed with stuff,
Mm.
and then at one point, uh, there's a thing on there where you can explore other GPTs, I guess
Oh
is what
yeah.
they call them. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like made by people. But
Yep.
there was one in there that was a coding GPT. And I
Mm.
was like, my background in school and stuff is hacking and coding and like programming and all that. I was like, damn, I wish I had this when I was in school.
Oh man, seriously.
Oh, well,
Like,
the whole, so I started college in 2015, and at that point there were AI writing tools that
mm.
were undetectable at that point in the college system, and now there are a plethora of them, and they have like systems and stuff that can detect if they are AI generated and all that kind of stuff. But needless to say, if this coding tool was there back in the day, your boy would have got a degree. Just saying, you know.
Or at least ChatGPT would have gotten a degree and you would have accepted on its
I
behalf.
would have accepted on its behalf. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane how good ChatGPT has gotten for stuff like that. I used it in its very early days. I actually used it to write some After Effects expressions because
Mm.
I'm I'm not good enough to write an After Effects expression from scratch. Like
Now, an
anytime I have
expression
to,
is like a script, or
yeah, it's literally code.
okay,
It's similar to like I think it's similar in syntax to like JavaScript or something like
okay,
that.
yep,
It's basically if you're trying to get After Effects to do something that it does not have a tool to do built in,
interesting. Okay,
you can do that. So like a big example of something that I used it for a lot, especially when I was doing corporate video. I would build After Effects templates for things like lower thirds. And so imagine you got a lower third, you got a piece of text with someone's name, and you've got a box around it, right?
mm.
And the box is like a solid background. Maybe it's got rounded corners or whatever. You could make it so that this After Effects thing was a template. So you could, instead of having to like recreate a new thing for every time you had a different name for someone, making fresh composite in After Effects, you could make one that was a template, import it into Premiere as a template, and you'd have a text box of like, okay, all you want to change is this person's name, type in the name, and it updates that layer, right? That's
Hmm.
so that was like that was a built-in feature. So that's all great. But what if you want that box that's behind the person's name to expand with the name? So if the name is like Bob, the box is short enough that it like just wraps around Bob and it's not this whole big long thing. If someone's name is Bobathew Hendricks, it extends out to fit that name perfectly. You want that to happen automatically because you can't like port that control into Premiere as a template. So what you would do is you would write an After Effects expression. So you would basically
Hmm.
tie like the X scale of this box, you would tie the X scale of this box to the size of the text layer. And you would say, whatever the text layer is, make this box the same, plus like an extra little bit for the padding. And then adjust the center point so that it like matches it and stuff like that.
What a nerd. Is anybody asleep yet? Oh, sorry.
I hope so. But it is mind melting to set up.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Like I probably set up like over a dozen templates with that expression to set it up. I saved myself hundreds of hours over the years, probably. I could not tell you a single. You know what step one, I can tell you what step one of writing that expression in After Effects is. It's go Google that expression,
That's
find a
funny.
tutorial, copy and paste it in, and that's it. So that to say, ChatGPT is amazing for that stuff because it's like if I'm in After Effects, I'm doing it because I'm a compositing, maybe visual effects guy. I'm not here to write code.
Yeah.
My brain does not work that way. I don't want to learn how to write After Effects expressions. I would much rather be able to focus on like this is what I think it should look like. And ChatGPT was pretty good back in the day, in the early days when they were still like ChatGPT 3, I think is what they were using. It was pretty good. I would copy and paste an After Effects expression in, and it would like almost work. But like After Effects would pop up an error of like, oh, this is an undefined value or something like that. And I
Yeah.
would go back and I would tell ChatGPT like After Effects is saying it's an undefined value, and it'd be like, yes, okay, I see what the problem is. Try this expression instead. And I would go in, and then sometimes I would have to tweak it a little bit and all that. Now I did the same thing the other day. It got it first try, and it like also explained to me like this is what this does, this is what that does. It was showing its work, and also like teaching
Show
me
your
in a
work
way
for
that I was
full
like,
credit.
yeah, and it was also teaching me in a way that like if I wanted to, I could look at it and be like, okay, I can actually understand why this is written the way it is.
Hmm.
Um, that to say, I think one of my personal things for the new year is I want to lean on ChatGPT for stuff like that more. I think that I'm not a fan of like AI generated slop. There's a lot of that, and that's not my goal. My goal is not for us to turn into, a creative agency that just uses ChatGPT for everything. but it is a work smarter, not harder kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, here, I'm copying and pasting like a massive, like, 3 paragraph document in here. Generate a shot list from this for me and like format it as a checklist. I've
Yeah.
done that. It
And
works great.
that is one thing that has been repeated multiple times to us throughout the year as we've been MIA from the medias that are social, is people asking us if we're worried about AI and like AI tools and
Mm-hmm.
like all of that, like as a creative agency. And I am super like for I'm super for the advancements of all that stuff. Like, there are tools, I can't remember the name of it right now, but there are tools out there where you can get like some very good quality like drone footage of a forest. Like, there are tools that can do that very, very, very well.
Yeah. I think
But
OpenAI's Sora is
I
one of
think
them.
Sora, yeah, that I was gonna say that, but I
There's a
remember
bunch
if I
of them.
was.
I think Sora is like the newest one that they just
Yeah,
released, and it's like it's starting to look. It's not looking as much like Nightmare Fuel.
yeah. I mean, when we first were making follow focus podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
that was one of our topics was, or not even a topic. We just got on that topic of like, everything that has fingers just doesn't make sense. Like
Yeah.
it can't count to 5 fingers for some reason, or
Yep.
you know they don't have eyebrows, or like it's just morphing into some sort of creature that looks like it should be at the bottom of the sea when it's supposed to be a person. Or even in the time span of less than a year, it's come a long way. I personally don't ever see it replacing what we do, but I think it does a great job aiding in what we do, right?
Yeah. The phrase that I've heard that I really like is your job is not going to get replaced by AI, but you are not going to get replaced by AI. You're going to get replaced by someone who uses AI.
Mm,
It's like it can be a, Steve Jobs he called the computer a bicycle for the mind. Whereas like humans, by default, humans are like the slowest land mammal, like the most inefficient walkers. But if you give a human a bicycle, they become the most efficient walking, moving people. And I think he was like, a computer is doing that for your mind. I think an AI is doing that, but for productivity, or at least it has the potential to. Also has the
yeah,
potential to like, generate some real nightmare fuel and, you know, deep fake a whole bunch of news and make people believe things that aren't true. Like I think it is as dangerous as it is exciting and potentially useful.
yeah,
Um,
I agree.
just like frickin' everything.
Yeah,
So no use like sticking your head in the sand over it. It's just like figure out how to use it for good and get good content out of it. But I mean, I don't know if you've noticed this, but like when we talk with other business owners and marketing people, there was a time around the middle of 2024, where I feel like every conversation we had with someone, they would end up saying like, "Oh, you can just use AI for that," or "Oh, just chat GPT this," or whatever. I feel like those conversations have really died down. People don't really say
yeah,
that as much anymore. And I think it's because we've sort of found the limitations of what AI can do, where it's like, oh, it can't really generate original thoughts.
yeah,
Like, it's amazing to rehash things or to give you inspiration, but it really is not very good at generating something that is super unique and original. Like, we're talking about using our ad and putting it out on, boosting it on Meta and LinkedIn and all these different advertising platforms. I would not do that with a piece of AI generated content. I would
no,
not sink money into a thing like that because I know that like no actual thought has gone into how effective this thing is going to be and what's going to work, what's not going to work. The conversations we had for our ad of like, okay, do we put a logo here? Do we not? Is this getting the right point across? We'll talk about that more in this month's office hours, but AI doesn't do that. Can it think? No, it can rehash is really what it is. So, uh, That's my AI soapbox. That being said, like I said, I want to use it more. I want to start thinking about ways that I can use it more to be more productive.
Cool.
Which actually, that could be a nice way to kind of wrap this up. We've talked about like what some of our big plans for the new year are. What are some of your, like, we've talked about advertising and getting out there more, and going out and actively seeking out new work more, being more active on social media. What are some of your either personal or business resolutions or goals? I like
Okay.
goals better than resolutions for this year.
Yeah, goals are achievable.
Yes.
Resolutions die after the first month.
Only good resolution is 12K.
That's valid.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully, other people understand that.
If they're listening to this show, they probably do. If you don't, I'm
If
so
it's your
sorry.
mom, she's probably like, I don't know. We love you.
If you don't get that, I'm so sorry. Half of what you just listened to was probably
You don't
absolute
know. You don't know what we're talking
garbage.
about. It's fine.
Yeah.
So I'll do a tangent of each. I don't think I've fully sat down and thought of like very fine, detailed goals
Mm-hmm.
personally, at least. But definitely hitting the gym more. Like that's a real thing. Like as you know, I'm an ex-athlete, and I've recently been feeling like because I used to play at a high level, all sports and doing all things and lifting a
Mm-hmm.
lot and doing all that. Like I think I'm at a point of an athlete's career where they're like wishing they were doing something because their muscles aren't working the way they used to. So
Mm-hmm.
like if you haven't been seeing me stand up these past couple times, like to let the dog out or whatever while we were talking earlier, I got a little limp. Like my Achilles and my left leg is like feeling a little tight. So
Mm.
it's making me think like, okay, it's time for me to go back to like doing something a little more intense, like in the fitness world. So
Yeah.
that's a journey. I don't really have a goal with it. I think it's just like the action of it,
Yeah.
like because I mean I feel like I'm still strong. I feel like I'm not a fat lard. Like you know, I don't need to focus on those things. It's more of just like being consistent and doing it. So finding that goal will come within it, like the more obtainable thing, but just doing it. On the professional business side of things, we've talked about goals and monetary goals and all that kind of stuff, but I would like to get on the side of like getting a team of people would be really cool. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we talked about what aspects of the business they could fill their roles, but hitting a base of clientele that want creative and high quality content, like that's kind of like an overcasting goal. I don't have quantifiable for that one, but I would just like more of that.
Yeah.
um because I feel like that's where we work best and I
Mm-hmm.
work best, of like actually utilizing whatever happens up here like for creative and for actually shooting and like all of that stuff. So because we did it a couple times this year, like there
Yeah.
was a couple big clients that we had that were we didn't create any of the creative part of it or scripting or any of that, but we did really creative stuff and had a voice within it, and that was really fun.
Yeah.
And then creating our advertisement was super fun, and
Mm-hmm.
doing the advertisements for Tortacos really fun.
Oh
Like
yeah.
if I could do more of that, even if it's just personal stuff and like we just create stuff just to create, which is a goal of mine. That's
Yeah.
another one. That's where I kind of land.
Yeah.
If that makes
I'm
sense.
totally with you on that. And I think the other big one that we've alluded to, but this year we want to have a studio space.
Yep.
Like that's a big thing. The wheels are already turning on that. That could happen. It could happen really soon, or it could happen later this year. But I think the plan is like by this fall, probably at the absolute latest.
I was gonna say I don't think any later than fall.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
we will be in a
we will
space,
have a
and
home.
we will have a home. The donut will have a home.
Yep.
And I'm really excited to see what that looks like. It's going to spawn a whole other set of
Oh,
conversations on this
dude,
show.
I might be there more than I am at my actual house. Like that's just because it'll become a playground, basically.
Yeah, and like
Um,
figuring out how to set all that up, and like We'll
Yeah.
be able to toy around with stuff and
We
really
could change it whenever
experiment.
we want because it's ours and like we don't have to live there, like
Yeah. Yeah, we can
uh,
leave stuff set up. I mean,
yeah.
yeah,
Like when I
we
was using
shot.
my kitchen table for shooting product stuff, I'm like, this is cool, and it stayed that way for or dining room table. Sorry, it stayed that way for a week or two, and then I was like, if we ever want to actually use the dining room table, I have to take all of this off and put all of this away, and yeah,
It would be nice to just actually have a place where that can live.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, those of you who watch the video version of this show will probably start being shot in that space, whatever it looks like.
yeah,
So
which also will be really really cool.
that will be really nice.
All
2024,
right,
man, it was a crazy year.
it was awesome. It's your turn. 2025 personal business.
Oh,
Go.
personal business. I
This
think.
guy, he forgot his own question. Where were you
Well, I
going?
thought
How?
I had just said I wanted to use AI, like start leaning
Oh,
into
was that
using
your whole
ChatGPT
thing?
stuff more. Not the whole thing, no.
Okay.
That's part of it, and that's like
Give the
that's
people what they want.
I will give the people what they want. The other big thing that I want to do personally, and it ties into the business for this year, is I want to get my I don't know if I've talked about on this show or with you, but the concept of a second brain. It's a fairly like somewhat common concept. It's like the idea of you have this digital like it's kind of like how you've got your notebook, and your notebook would be like your second brain, where it's
Okay.
like you're putting all your ideas and thoughts and plans and all this stuff into one place because you can't hold it all up in here. So this is your second brain. This is where all that extra auxiliary stuff lives. There's a book called Building a Second Brain that I'm working my way through right now by a guy named Tiago Forte. I think I'm pronouncing that right. He's also on YouTube. He has a lot of really good content, but he talks about how you can build a second brain in a digital medium. Um, and it's really fascinating. He doesn't talk about like specific tools. It doesn't even necessarily have to be digital. He really talks about it from a digital standpoint because like that there are benefits of having it at digital that are like it's searchable and like you can have a ton of data in here and you can just if you tie it into something like ChatGPT, you can just ask it a question and be like, what did I think about, there was a game that I saw that I wanted to play and I wrote it down. I think it was green. What was it? And it can find it.
Hmm.
Um, but I have been wanting to build that system probably in Notion for a while. And it's the case of I want to finish this book and possibly listen to his or read one of his other books where he
Is
talks
this
a
an
bit more about.
audiobook?
It can be. I don't know why I said listen. I'm actually physically reading this one, which is
Oh.
unusual for me. I don't
Hey, look.
read a
I
lot.
bought a
What do you
couple
got more?
books. Here's one of mine. It's
Intrusive
backwards. I don't
leadership.
know yeah.
No, it's
Yep.
it's it's frontwards for me.
It's backwards for me, which is makes no sense. But yeah. How to become that leader. So,
That leader. That's a
back
cool
in
one.
back into the leadership. I haven't opened it yet. I was reading another one, but I lost it, so then I bought this one. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, I've got
It's somewhere.
all my physical reading is done on a Kindle nowadays, and I dusted it off. I
Okay.
want to do more physical reading. I do a lot of audiobook reading. Like if we're driving somewhere, a lot of audiobooks. But I want to do more physical reading. And this second brain book I think is a really good one for that. So I want to finish that book, maybe read his other one, and then I'll feel like have I have enough ideas of like how this system could benefit me to then build it out. Because I just have like these massive folders and vaults. Why are you eating mashed potatoes?
That's ice cream.
Oh, that's ice cream. Never mind. That's better.
Yeah, dude. Sorry.
I just looked over and you're like holding it out like towards me. That was interesting. Um So yeah, I want to get that set up, and I want to be able to feel like I have all of my knowledge that I can't fit in my head is in a place that I can actually do something with it. That's the big idea. Is like he doesn't want you. He's not talking about this system in terms of like just a massive black hole that you shove stuff into and then you never see it again. It's about
Hmm.
capturing information, organizing it, and then being able to act on it later. So
Interesting.
that's a
Okay,
big
so
that's a big thing.
so two books our listeners and watchers have to read. The book I haven't read yet, Intrusive Leadership, and the book you're reading, Building a Second Brain. Okay.
Those are our book recommendations. Yes.
Yeah. And I can give you more down the road. Just every episode, I give you a book recommendation. That'll be a
That would be
segment.
fun. That would be fun because eventually I'll run out of books if I don't keep reading. I've got a few. I got a few other ones back here. I used to read quite a bit, and then I don't know. I stopped commuting on the train mostly. A lot
I
harder to
read.
read.
I
A
read
lot
for
harder to
about a
read a book in
year.
the car. You read for about a year straight.
Yeah, yeah, that was about it. Actually, 6 years, 5 years ago. That's fine.
Congrats.
Well, cool. I think I wrote some stuff down, but I feel like we've done a pretty good job on our episode here. I
I would
mean,
agree. Good
I feel
first
like we
episode
recapped
back.
well.
Yeah.
You know, updated the people, told them about the office hours. I was going to ask you about your thoughts on the whole TikTok thing, but
Oh, on the ban.
on the ban, yeah.
That's gonna be.
In
I
2 weeks, like if it happens, like do we
I don't know
think it's
what's.
actually going to happen? Like,
I don't know. Honestly, I'm like flip a coin at this point. I think if it does go away, if it does get banned, it's probably going to get banned for a short period of time because it seems like the incoming administration has signaled that they're probably going to try and rescue it somehow. But how long that would take because it was like banned by an act of Congress, it can only really be unbanned by an act of Congress, and so we'll see. There's been a lot of speculation about that.
no, your short form content doesn't go anywhere, on a creative and social side because you still have reels, you still have YouTube Shorts, so that side of things isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, something will step in to fill the vacuum.
Yeah,
A
now I
lot of
think
Instagram Reels seems to be like poised to take that over. A lot of like TikTok creators that I follow have been posting things of like, "Hey, in case this goes down, here's my Instagram account."
yeah, and it's going to be a similar thing to when Vine shut down
Mm,
the way back in the day, right? And all of those creators that were being sustained financially through like sponsors and stuff like that on Vine, they were like, "What do we do now?"
yeah,
It's basically like you work in a very very niche job. You can't just go next door to the next factory and work the same thing because they don't have that position. Like,
yeah,
so everybody was like, became that's where like what's his face, David Dobrik became, and Logan Paul became YouTubers,
right.
and how they've evolved. Controversial. We love them, right? But like it's the same thing here where something is going to be there, and they're already pretty established. Like Reels is pretty established and YouTube Shorts is pretty established,
Yeah,
but the only thing I feel like will be missing is your ability to have virality. Like TikTok is one of those things where their algorithm basically just vomits your content to other people
yep.
until somebody just doesn't watch it for a half a second. Like
Hmm.
that, I have some TikToks of random stuff that I've created over the years, and they have thousands of views.
Yeah,
And it's like it was a drone shot of the beach. Woo. Like
yeah. YouTube has become such a like closed off and like we only show you stuff that you already like. Like
Yeah, yeah,
it is incredibly difficult to break through to a new audience on there. We've seen that with the stuff that we post for ourselves and our clients. YouTube is more of like a hosting platform unless you like really want to dig into it and be a quote unquote YouTuber. But something like TikTok and to a lesser degree Instagram is where you are like you will get fresh eyes. You will get a new
yeah,
audience there. I think a lot of it just depends on how something like an Instagram, if TikTok goes away, Instagram seems like the most likely thing to take its place. That seems to be where people are kind of like those who are eyeing the door are eyeing the Instagram door. It just depends on whether their algorithm is going to handle content the same way. I think they would have a vested interest in trying to make it behave similarly rather than something like a YouTube because they're trying to replace TikTok. But yeah, so yeah, I think the content when Vine shut down, there was nothing else like Vine. No one had thought to
yeah.
make
Until
another Vine.
Musically came, like I don't know how I never did Musically, but Musically was the next thing
Yeah,
to my knowledge.
yeah. So there wasn't
And
like
that
the
also
obvious
that's what evolved into TikTok.
right. But there really
So
wasn't an obvious thing of like, if someone else made a Vine clone, we'll just jump over to that. We don't like Twitter anymore, we're jumping over to Blue Sky. We don't like Instagram, we're going over to YouTube Shorts. Now you've got a lot of options for places you could go. So yeah, I'm not concerned about creators, the content, that whole thing. That will absolutely survive. I think a lot of it is more of just it's just more about a precedence of, can you ban a platform because of what that platform might do? I think is where it's tricky, because sure, there's a lot of, I will be the first to admit that like TikTok's data collection and the amount of like information they have on you is absolutely scary. But that is also the case for literally every other social media platform. Like Facebook has more information on you than TikTok does by a mile. Google has more information on me than TikTok does. The only difference is that they happen to be an American-owned company, or controlled by an American-owned company.
yep.
I have no reason to trust them more or less than
No.
any other country in the world,
Yeah.
frankly.
Like, what are they going to do with my information? Like, you can have it.
I know there's a thing to be said of like, my stuff's out there. Who cares? Right?
Yeah. I mean, if I get more spam calls, like, no thanks. But
I don't see how that's possible.
no,
Like,
I get
I'm
so
flooded
many,
with
it's not
them
even
already.
funny.
Yeah, I get ads on TikTok for like, if you get spam texts like this, it's because your data's been hacked. I'm like, yes, I do. I mean, yeah, it probably has. And then they're like, but our service can remove your information from the internet. I'm like, no, it can't. Anyone who says they can remove something from the internet is straight up lying to you. So, no thanks. All right. I think that's enough tangents for today. 2024, over and done
Bye.
with, closed out. 2025, very exciting things ahead. Like I said, we're going to be back with an episode just like this, or at least very similar to this, first Monday of every month. And then third Monday of every month is going to be those office hours, donut hours, something like that. You'll find out in 2 weeks what we've decided to call
Yeah.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But thank you guys so much for watching, listening, sticking around through our brief hiatus and through our rebrand into the Purple Donut Podcast. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you being along for the ride with us, and we hope you have a wonderful and happy new year.
Bye.
Bye.
Now you have to sing the music out.
Oh, do I? Wait,
Yeah.
what's the sting out gonna be? I don't know how that song ends.
This guy.
There you go.
That was it.
That was it.